Flappy Bird in Godot. Godot is a really powerful engine, and I wanted to teach anyone coming into Godot for the first time or anyone who is looking for help in the engine how to use and create amazing games with this game engine. So welcome to my complete beginner's guide to Godot, or Godot, or whatever you want to call it. If there is anything that you need help on that I don't go over in this video, then let me know in the comments. I would like to ask one thing, and that is, if you haven't already hit that subscribe button, then it would mean the world to me, so YouTube can push this video into their algorithm so more aspiring game developers can learn to make their own Godot games for themselves. But without further ado, let's get started and learn to create Flappy Bird in Godot. So to get started with our game, we're going to first create some organization. So we're going to go down here to the file system in the bottom left. We can create new folder, and we will have a folder for our scripts. We will have a new folder for our scenes that we save, and we will have a new folder for our art, or our game art. And this icon.svg is game art, so we're going to move that into the art folder. I left a link to a art set on itch.io that you can go and download for completely free from the creator of a very, very good looking art set. And once you download it, it's going to give you some folders, and you can just drag and drop these folders into this art folder. And now you can see that we have all this background art, we have all this player art, and we have the tile sets, which we're actually going to be using these a little bit, but not the tile sets. I mean, so the tile sets are the pipes. These are all the pipes that we're going to have. These are the birds. We're going to be using the bird 1, and we're going to be using background 2 for this tutorial. So yeah, link in the description to the art. But now that everything is set up and organized, we are going to get started with the actual coding and the fun part of creating the game. Okay, so to start with our game, our Flappy Bird game, we're going to start by creating the player. So other node, and we can start with a character body 2D, which is used for almost any character or any controllable movement player in Godot. This is also used for enemies and stuff like that. So the character body 2D is going to be a bird. It's going to be our bird, so we can name it bird. And in our bird, we're going to want an animated sprite 2D, which is going to be for our animations. And to create animations, we're going to go to our inspector, sprite frames, a new sprite frame, and we can click on the sprite frame here, and it's going to bring up a window down here. So in this window, we're going to have default, which we can rename to idle. This can be our idle animation. And on our idle animation, to select a frame, we will click on this little check here, and we will find our art, which is going to be in our art player, and our first one, which is our bird 1. And we can zoom in so we can see. It's going to kind of cut it up, and these are all going to be animations, which is not what we want, because we want just this frame right here. So we can move this all the way down to 1. Now we have this entire box, 4 horizontal, 1 vertical, and this is going to be our idle animation, just 1 frame. And then we're also going to have 1 more animation, so we can click this to create a new one, and this will be our fly animation. So when we are moving, then we will have, instead of having just 1 frame, we will have all 4 frames, and make sure you put them in order. So this is frame 1, frame 2, frame 3, frame 4. Add frames, it's going to add them all. And if we play, it's going to obviously play the animation, and it looks like it is playing the good animation, or it looks like it's playing a animation. And you're also going to see that it's kind of blurry. So to fix that, we can go to our project, we can go to our project settings, we can go to our renderer, our textures, it's in textures. And instead of linear, we can have nearest. Now, if we close it, you'll see that it looks very sharp and pixel arty, right? So we can save our scene by clicking Control S. We can save, and let's make sure we move it in the scenes folder so we keep everything perfectly organized. And on top of our animated sprite, or in our bird, we're going to want a collision shape 2D, and we can create this collision shape 2D over here by doing scale, and we will go with I think we want a circle. Is that going to look best? Yeah, we'll go with a circle just like that. So now we have a collision shape on our bird, and we also, this bird is extremely small, so we can size it up, but we don't know exactly how big we want the bird until we have the viewport and we can see exactly how big we want the view to be, right? Because obviously Flappy Bird's a mobile game, so this is not going to be the entire game, right? The game is going to maybe be something like this right here. So we'll end up sizing this up later. Obviously, it's way too small right now, so we'll size it up, but we'll do that here in a little bit. So we're going to go and create a brand new script, which is going to be our bird.gd on our bird by clicking this button up here. And now we have a brand new script. It's going to come with a bunch of stuff like it does on a character body. And we can also click Control S to save this script, and it's going to save it into the scenes folder because that's what was selected. So we can remove this into the scripts folder. So all this stuff here in the bird is, I mean, it works. You can move a character. It's going to be like a platformer movement, but we are going to remove everything that is there. So first, to start our bird script, we want a class name to keep everything organized so we can access the bird from every other script in the game. And then we're also going to want to create a signal, which this signal is going to be our game started. So whenever we first click the jump button for the very first time, then we're going to emit a signal that is going to be our game started signal. So every other object in the game knows that we started. We're going to create some variables. So first we want a constant, which is going to be our flap force. And flap force is going to be equal to like -300, right? We can always come back and change this. We're also going to have a constant, our max speed, which we can equal to, I don't know, we'll go with like 400, right? Which is going to be the max speed that we can fall towards the ground. So we don't want to be able to fall at an infinite speed down. We want to be able to have a stop. So whenever we get to 400, as we're falling 400 down towards the ground, then we want to be maxed out at 400, right? And then we're also going to have a gravity variable. So we'll have our gravity here, which is going to be equal to like, I don't know, we'll go with like something like 850. And we can always come back and change that again. We're also going to have a var, which is going to be our rotation speed. I did not spell that right at all. Rotation speed. And that for now is going to be equal to like 3, because you know in Flappy Bird how whenever you're going up, you have to rotate up. And whenever you're falling down, you got to rotate down. So we can always come back and change this again as well. And then we're also going to want two Boolean variables, which is going to be a started variable, so we can check if the game is started or not. And we're going to want a process input to see if our player has died. Because if our player has died, then we want process input to be equal to false, right? Because the player is dead and we do not want to be able to process input. We do not want to be able to move because the player is not alive, right? So we're going to start off by creating our ready function, which is going to run as soon as the game is started. And as soon as the game is started, we want our player or our animated sprite.2d to play the animation idle, because we want to be in the idle game state, which we'll go over later in the tutorial. And outside of the ready function, then we want to have a physics process function, which is going to basically be a physics process function, which is going to control all the movement and is going to constantly loop over and over and over and over thousands of times throughout the game to check if we're, clicking the jump button to control the gravity, all that type of stuff. So in this function, we're going to first of all check if we are jumping. So if input dot is action just pressed, our UI up, which is going to be our up arrow, and we're able to process input, right? So that means we're kind of living and we're able to process input. Then we're going to want to check if we have started. So if we do that, then we're going to want to call our jump function, right? So whenever we click our up button and we can process input, we want to jump. But we have no jump function, so we can come down here and we can create a jump function. We can say function jump. And inside of this jump function, we're going to want to have some variables like a velocity.y, so we can change our velocity, so we can change our position. Velocity.y, which is going to be up and down, is going to be equal to our flap force, which is a -300, which is going to push us up. So flap force, and we're going to want to change our rotation to equal degree to rad -30, which is going to rotate us up as well, right? So when we go up, we want to be rotated up, that's what that's going to do. And then we also want to go back up to our physics process. So if input.isAction up and we can process input, we want to check if we've started the game, because if we have not started the game and we click the up button, then we want to start the game, right? So we can check if the game is not started. So if the game is not started, then we're going to want to get our animated sprite, and we're going to want to play our fly animation. So we'll do play, and then we can say our fly animation. So then we'll play our fly animation, and then we also want to emit our game started signal that we created at the top, so every other object in the game knows that the game has started. We want to change our started variable to equal to true, And that is so we cannot come back in here, right? Because this is going to loop over and over to make sure we're clicking the jump button. And if we click the jump button and the game is not started, then, well, we're going to start the game. But if we do click the jump button and started is equal to true, then we're going to go straight here and we're going to jump, right? And then we also want to go down here to the bottom, and if we do not click this jump button and we do not process input and the game is not started, then we want to say started. So if not started, we want to return, right? So what this is going to do is it's going to keep going back up here until the game starts. It's going to keep going through all this code right here until the game starts over and over and over and over and over. But if the game is started, then we're going to access all this code below the return, which is going to be, first of all, we want to start our gravity. So velocity.y plus equals our gravity times our delta, which is a Godot variable inside of the physics process. And then we want to say, like, if our velocity.y is greater than our max speed, we want velocity.y to equal max speed, because we do not want to be falling infinitely fast down to the ground based on how high up we are, right? So if velocity dot y is greater than our max speed, which is like our max fall speed, then we want velocity dot y to equal our max speed, right? So then we'll stay at 400 forever and we'll never go past 400. So after that, then we're going to need a function for being able to, this is going to be like our function for, what would you call it? Like the function that you have to have in Godot for the player to be able to move on the screen, which is going to be a move and collide, right? So move and collide, we're going to want to input our velocity times our delta. This is going to allow our player to actually move on the screen, because if we don't have this, our player will not move. And then under all of this, we're going to have a tilt function, which is going to rotate us up when we're or rotate us down when we're falling and rotate us up when we are rising. So tilt, we obviously do not have a tilt function. So we can go down here to the bottom and we can create a brand new function. So function tilt. And in this function, we're going to add a if velocity dot y is greater than 0, which means if velocity dot y is greater than 0, then that means we're going to be going down towards the ground. We're going to be falling. So and we also want to check if our rad 2 degrees. So this is basically our rotation. If we're rotation, and then we can input our rotation is greater than 90, which means we're going to be, this means if it's greater than 90, we're going to be facing up, right? Or we're not going to be facing, this means we're not going to be facing directly down, right? Because if we're facing directly down, we do not want to keep rotating and rotate in a full circle and start spinning, right? We want to rotate until we're facing down, then we want to stop and fall with head first. So to do that, then we'll go in here and we'll say rotation plus equals our rotation speed times our degree to rad 1. That means we're going to rotate at 1 down. So we're going to fall slowly, right? So we're going to rotate fast, but it's going to be a smooth rotation, right? And then we're going to go here and we're going to say else if our velocity is going to be dot y, which is going to be less than, which means we're going up and we're going towards the sky, we're flying. Rad to degree, rotation, same exact thing. We want to make sure that we are not above negative 30, right? Because if we are above negative 30, which means we are higher than negative 30, which means we're facing more up, which means we're facing, actually, this means we're going to be facing under, right? So that means we're not all the way at the top. That means we're not at 30 degrees yet. We're still under 30 degrees. So we're facing like this way, not this way yet. So if that happens, then we want to rotate up, right, by 1 degree. So rotation, we'll say rotation. I don't know why I had such a hard time spelling rotation there. But then we'll get our rotation speed, and we'll times that just like we did on the way down. Degree, rad to degree, 1. Now, if we go down here, we're going to have one more function, which is going to be our function done. So basically, when we die, when our player dies, we're going to say process input is going to be equal to false. We're going to have another function, which is going to be our stop function, which is going to kind of stop the game and stop all movement. So stop, we're going to say our animated sprite dot stop. So we're going to stop playing animation. We're also going to change our gravity to equal to 0. And we're also going to say our velocity dot equals our vector 2. And we want that to be 0 so we don't move anymore, right? So dot 0. Now, technically the player should work. So if we play the scene by clicking F6, you'll see that it's very, very, very small up here, but it does work. It does work very, very well. And obviously we can scale this up, so we can go to our bird and we can go to transform and we can go to scale. We'll scale this up to like 3.5, so it's a little bit bigger. And now if we play, you can kind of see the bird more over there, but we go up, we fall, and as you can see, we do keep falling and we do spin in circles, which is obviously not exactly what we want. So we can go in here and we can debug this and see exactly why that is. So why do we spin in circles? We must not max it out somewhere, and we'll have to find out where we do not max it out at, right? So let's see. So this is going to be negative, right? So that's rotates us down, that rotates us up. I don't see anything wrong. I'm probably going to have to debug this here in just a second so I can try and figure out what is going on. But I don't actually see a bug. I do see the bug. Okay, never mind. The bug is right here. So right here, rotation and 90 are all in the exact same thing, which is obviously not good. So rotation needs to be in its own thing. And then we need to have greater than 90, which is not what we had before. Now, if we were to play the game, you see that we go up, and then when we fall, it stops, and it does not keep rotating. It's hard to see because we're still like on the very edge of the screen because I don't want to move the player off of like its center point. But let's go create the main scene real quick, and then we'll be able to see everything, how everything works and how everything comes together. So to do that, let's go and create a brand new scene. We're going to create a node 2D, or actually, I think we can do we want a node 2D or do we want a 2D? Actually, we're going to go with the normal node. So we'll just go with the node and we'll name this our main scene, right? And on our main scene, we're going to want to have some different stuff. So actually, first of all, let's make the project view mobile view. So we can go to project, we can go to project settings. So we're going to go to window up here, and then we are going to change the viewport width and the height, which I actually do not know the exact increments of mobile. I know the height is going to be like 300, and the width is going to have to obviously be, actually no, we're going to go with the width as 300, and we're going to go as the height as 550. No, wait, what am I talking about? No, okay, so the height has to be, no, that's right, 550. So the height has to be 550 and the width has to be 300. And then we can come down here and we can do viewport mode aspect. We can go to disabled. We can we can change this to viewport, and then we can make this keep, make sure that's keep, and that should be good. So if we close out of this, you can see it's more of a mobile view now, right? That's more of a mobile view. So now in our main scene, we're going to want to create a background, and we are going to want to instance our player. So first, let's instance our bird scene by clicking this little chain, and then we can move our bird scene to the middle of the scene. And then if we click F6, or let's save, so Control S, we can save this into our scenes folder, save, and then we can click F6 and we can play, and you can see our bird. We fly up, we fall down, we fly up, and that is that looks like a Flappy Bird character. That looks like a Flappy Bird player, and that looks pretty good. As you can see, when we fall, we don't rotate over and over and over like we were doing before, but that is nice, right? And you can see that we max out at a max speed. If we do not have the max speed, then we will never max out, and it would be bad. So if we go up here and we create a brand new we need some sort of background, right? So to do that, we're going to start it off with a, do we want to go with an animated sprite? No, we're actually going to go with a normal sprite. And in this normal sprite, we can create a texture. So we can go to our art, and we can go to our tile set, and we can go to backgrounds. I mean, not our tile set. And we're going to use background 2. We can drag this into our texture up here, and we can move this down here, right? And obviously, we need it to take up the entire screen, which if we do that, that's not going to look the best. So we're going to leave it down here. And then, obviously, most of the time, you're going to have a color right here that you're able to use and to match the exact same color. But I'm just going to keep this simple, and we're going to add a color rect to our sprite 2D. We're going to use our color up here, and we are going to find our sprite 2D first, which is going to be right here. It's not going to let me expand it. Oh, it's right here. Never mind. So we can expand this for the entirety of the top. So we can try and line it up with the sky color. So if we go here, and then we can click our color picker, and the color picker is obviously it's not going to work. So the color picker does not work, but we can try and line it up the best of our ability, try and make it look as close as possible. So darker. That is pretty close. That is pretty close. It's actually not that close, but maybe we can make it a little tiny little bit darker by changing this a little bit. That's all the way at 0 already. Okay, so that's obviously not the right color. That's more of the right color. That's more of it. That's more of it. That's too dark. Boom. Okay, that it does not match at all, but we are going to stick with it. It's fine. So I don't know why the color picker on Godot was not working, but if you want the exact color, you can go online and you can find the exact color of this by using a Google color picker, and you can see the exact hue, the exact code number of that color, and you can come over here and you can put it in right here, and you could have the exact code or the exact color, so it matches it up perfect. But it's not that big of a deal. So in our sprite 2D, we can go up here and we can name this our background, right? So this will be our background, and we can move this up to the top so it's behind the bird and the bird is in front, and that looks good, right? So if we were to play the game by F6, you will see that we have a background, we have a bird. Now we just need the pipes and the respawn button and the score and the game manager and a bunch of stuff. But this is a working player and a working background in Godot for our Flappy Bird game. So this is a good start. Now let's get going and let's create pipes for our Flappy Bird game. Okay, so now we need to go and create the pipes for the Flappy Bird. So to start, we're going to go to the main, and we are going to add a simple camera 2D. And the camera 2D, we can kind of line it up in the middle just so we can see the entire game. Make sure it's on enabled, and we'll leave all the settings basically the same. Move the camera a little bit more up so it matches. And then if we play, everything kind of looks the same as it always has. The bird flies, but we have no pipes. So to create the pipes, it is actually going to be pretty complex, but I'm going to break it down into a simple way and the easiest way that you can go about this. So we're going to create a brand new scene, and we're going to make a node 2D, or a node 2D, and then we can just name this pipes, because this is going to be our pipe, right? And we can add another node to the pipe node, and we are going to have an area 2D. I accidentally clicked that. Minimize. Okay, I think my entire thing just lagged up. Okay, no, okay, we're good, we're chill. So, area 2D, and then we're gonna name this our top, because this is gonna be the top pipe. And then we are also going to have another area 2D, and this area 2D is going to be called the bottom, because this is going to be the bottom of the pipe, right? So let's make each pipe one by one. So in the top, we're going to need a sprite, we're going to need some type of art, and we are going to also need like a collision shape so the area 2D actually works. So we know if the enemy runs into it, then we can say, okay, the bird has died, right? So we're going to want to first of all add a animated sprite or a sprite, just a normal sprite. I'm just going to do an animated sprite because I have to try and it can be called default because I have one frame, right? So I'm just going to use an animated sprite, play the default animation at all times, go to the art, go to our tile set, go to our style 1, and we are going to just go with, we'll go with this, right? So this is the top, but we can change this. Actually, no, we're going to leave it. So this is going to be the top one, right? The one that's facing down is the top because this is the bottom of the top pipe, right? So we're going to add one frame, and you can see like this is the top pipe. So once we have our top pipe, that's just the sprite, we're going to go and we're going to add a collision shape. And the collision shape we are going to create in a second because we can't really create the collision shape just now. But let's just move the top out of the way. And by the way, I click this button up here, it kind of hides or it locks everything together so you can only move this so everything moves at once. But our bottom, so for the bottom, we're going to kind of do the exact same thing, right? So we're going to have an animated sprite. We're going to create new sprite frames. We're going to 0 frames a second. And we are going to pick out, instead of that one, we're going to pick out the top tile, as you can see. So now it looks like this, which is how the pipes are supposed to look, right? So, and then on the bottom, we also are going to need a collision shape 2D. And we will mess with that here in just a minute. So now we have our 2 pipes. These obviously need to be scaled up a little bit, but we'll do that here in a little bit whenever we finish the entire pipe itself. But we are also going to go and create another area 2D, and this is just going to be called our scored area, right? Because when we pass through this area, we are going to score a point. So first, we're going to go to the bottom. We're going to size this up to make it a decent size. We're going to go over to our transform, and we can scale this up by 2, maybe like 2.4. Just make it to where it looks pretty good. That might be too big. So maybe 2, maybe like 1.8. And we can always come back and change this. So we'll go with 1.8, and then we'll also scale the top to 1.8. Now we have the same, but you're going to notice that like it's only a little bit of the pipe. So to fix this, I'm going to go to our top. We're going to add another animated sprite. This is not probably the ideal way to do this, but it is most likely the easiest way to do it. So we'll go 0 frames. And then instead of that, we're going to make vertical a little bit more. So we can just grab this middle piece, add frame. And we have to unchild lock, so we can click on that to unchild it. And then we can take this middle piece, line it up perfectly, just like so. And we can expand it, right, as much as you want to, right? So boom, we can expand it. Now that it's expanded, we can go to our collision shape for the top. We can create a rectangle collision shape, and we can just size this out for the entirety of our pipe. That's a little too low. And then all the way on this side, all the way over here. And then we can zoom out and take the top of this all the way up to where it needs to go. If I can zoom up, take the top of this all the way up as high as you want, right? Boom, that's going to be our top pipe. That's going to be classified as the top pipe. Now, for the bottom pipe, we're going to do the same thing. I'm just going to go animated sprite, animation frames, new sprite frames. And then we're going to, once again, change the frames per second to 0. Click on this little grid button, and we are going to vertical 6. So we have 6 squares vertical and 4 horizontal. And we're going to pick the center one again. And we can bring it down. Make sure we unchild lock it by clicking on that. And we can bring it down here. Make sure it's lined up perfectly, which that looks pretty perfect. And expand the bottom of that pipe. Now, we are going to go to our collision shape, and we're going to do the exact same thing that we did on the top. Make sure this is pretty perfect. Doesn't have to be exactly perfect. I like to leave a little bit of space right here, just so it doesn't look too, you know, just so, I mean, I don't really know, but you don't have to, right? You can have it. But we're going to have our top pipe and we're going to have our bottom pipe, and they are complete. So we're going to go back to the bottom. We're going to child lock it. We're going to go back to the top and we are going to child lock it. So now when we move it, we move the entire pipe. And one last thing, let's set the Y. So let's see what looks good. We'll just go with this for now, right? Like how much distance looks good. We can always come back and change this. But now we need to go to our bottom, and we're going to take this Y axis, or the X axis, which is 159. Then we're going to go to the top, and we're going to change this to 159. And now we are perfectly aligned and everything is looking good. So one more thing, we have our scored area 2D. So we're going to have to add a collision shape to our scored area 2D, and we go collision shape 2D, just a basic collision shape. I don't know where it's going to spawn all the way over here, which doesn't really matter because we can just expand this and we're going to put it right here. So anytime the bird comes through the pipe, then we're going to score as soon as it passes through here. So we're going to go up to the top. We're going to create a brand new script, and this is going to be called our pipes.gd. Make sure we save it into the scripts folder down here at the bottom. And we're going to, first of all, delete all this. Actually, we're going to end up needing the process function, but we can delete all this top. And then we can go back to our 2D. We can go to the top area 2D. So this is going to be this entire piece. Then go to node, go to our body entered, and we'll connect that to the pipes script. And then we'll also do that with the bottom, connect body entered to the pipes script. And then we'll also do scored, which is going to be body entered connected to the pipes script as well. So now if we go up here to the top, and we're going to have to create a couple of variables to start. First of all, we're going to make our class name for this scene, which is going to be pipes, because these are the pipes. So when we want to access that from other scripts, it is easy to do so. We're going to have our speed variable, which is going to be like how fast the pipes move across the screen, and we'll end up changing that later. We're not going to change that now. We'll change that based on a different script. And then we'll have our signals. We're going to have an entered signal, which is when the bird enters, or we're going to use that. So when we signal enter, that means we hit the pipe. If we hit the pipe, that means we have to kill the bird, right? So that's what happens when we're going to signal our enter signal. And then we're also going to have a signal scored. Obviously, whenever we score, then we're going to set that signal. And then if we go and let's create one function, and this function is going to say our set speed function. And this function is going to basically set the speed, new speed, whatever we pass through from any other script in the game will come through here, and then it will be equal to the speed variable. It will be equal to the speed variable up here. So when we want to use that down, let's also save the scene. So Control S into the scenes folder, save. But the speed variable will be passed through from a different script, or the general script, or the game manager script that we are going to create here in a little bit. And then we'll end up using this during the process function right here when we move the pipes, right? So position dot x plus equals speed times our delta. And then we're going to have to go down here. So when we hit either the top pipe or the bottom pipe, so if we run into one of the pipes, we're going to keep it simple, and we're just going to, or in this script, it's going to be simple. In other scripts, it's going to be a little bit more complex. But If we enter the top, then we're going to want to do entered.emit, and we'll just emit that signal. And then same if we hit the bottom, then we entered.emit. We'll emit the same exact signal. And then on scored, whenever we score, then we'll just emit the scored signal. And that is all for the pipe scene. Like, that is everything that we have for the pipes. But we have no way of spawning these pipes, right? So if we go to the main and we play, obviously we haven't added anything to the main, so nothing works. We have a working bird, but we have no pipes. But we do have the pipes scene now. So we have working technically pipes. We technically have pipes, but we have no way to spawn the pipes. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our main scene, and we're going to add just a normal node to the main scene. We can bring this to the top just to make it look a little bit neater. And we can name this something like the pipe, I don't know what, spawner. We'll keep it how it is because this is the pipe spawner. And in the pipe spawner, we're going to actually add a timer. And we can make this wait time. This is going to be the wait time in between when you spawn pipes, right? So I don't know, we can start off at, we'll start off at like, I don't know, we'll wait, what, 2.5 seconds in between each pipe. We can always come back and change this, and auto start is equal to true. And on the pipe spawner node, we're going to create a script, pipespawner.gd. Make sure all this stuff is saved into the right folders down here in your file manager to keep the system looking good, or just be able to stay organized. So in this node, we're going to use the ready function, and we will just use that right now. So we'll create it, or actually we need to access our timer first. So let's create the variables before, because we can't access the timer until we have the variables complete, right? So first we have the class name just to keep everything organized in our game, and we'll name this pipe spawner. And then we'll have signal crashed, which obviously means when the bird crashes. And we'll have another signal, which is going to be scored, which is when the bird scores. And then we have to access our pipe scene. So to do that, we can do a var pipe I guess var pipe scene, right? Just get our pipe scene, and then equals preload. And then we have to bring in our pipe scene. So we can either look for it in here, or we can just do it manually. But script.pipe, it's not a script, it's a scene. It's going to be pipe.tscn, right? This right here may be different depending on how you stored it. If you stored it the exact same way in the exact same folders as I did, then that will be the exact same link to get that scene, right? And we'll have our pipe speed, which will eventually pass through to the other script, which is going to be equal to like -150, because we want everything to be moving left, right? So 150 would mean the pipes would be moving right, but we need the pipes to move left. So we go like that, and then we'll create an onReady, not the hashtag, you need to make sure you have the @ an onReady var, which is going to be our spawn timer, and we'll just name this, or we'll just get our timer, right? So we'll get our timer node. Okay, so now after we have our spawn timer function, we can actually go and create the ready function, which will say spawn timer dot timeout, which is a timer function on Godot. And then we want to connect this to a function which we do not have right now, but we will create it, which is our spawn pipe function, which is basically when we spawn a pipe. So yeah, we're gonna have an error because we don't have that function. So to take that error away, we can go down here and we can create that function. If we pass this through, it should take that error away, right? So we can go, and this is going to be a pretty decent size, like this is going to be a pretty decent size script, our function, right? So first, when we spawn a pipe, we need to have a variable, or we need to be able to have a way to access our pipe, right? So our pipe equals, we can do pipe scene, right? So it's going to be pipe scene dot instate, which is a Godot function, as pipes, which is the class name of our pipes in our pipes scene, right? So this is the class name. So we want to get the class name in this function. So we kind of access, we're making sure we access this node right here. That's what we're doing right there, right? So now this entire scene is all in this one node. So when we spawn a pipe, we're going to add a child, which is going to be kind of the way that we spawn the pipe and we duplicate the pipe over and over. And that's going to be to add the child pipe, which we just accessed. So we're basically going to spawn that entire scene, right? And then we need to have our, so var viewport rect, right? We're going to get a viewport rect, or that's just going to be the variable name. But we can get our viewport, which is a viewport, which is, which is a Godot function. And then we need to get our camera 2D, and then we need to get our viewport rect. I'll go over how this works here in just a second, but get half height, get half height. This is kind of the way it, like, this is how it's going to randomize how high up it is or how high low it is, right? So, because sometimes you want the opening of the pipe higher or lower, so it's random. This is what that is for right there. So var half height equals viewport rect, which is the function or the variable dot size, and we can actually, we need this to be dot size y, so it's up and down, divided by like 2, right? And then we got our pipe position dot x is going to be equal to viewport. No. It's going to be equal to viewport. Oh, I cannot type. All right, viewport. Did I spell that wrong? Viewport rect dot end dot x, because x is going to kind of stay the same, or it's going to be moving at, right? So it's not going to be a random number. It's going to be moving along with the speed. And then we have our pipe dot position dot y, which is going to be randomized, is going to be equal to a random range, right? So it's going to be equal to a random range. And we'll say it can be equal from, we'll go with like viewport. I'm going to explain better how this works here in just a second. But viewport.rect.size.y. And then we can times that by a very, very small number, right? Like 0.15, right? Something very small. And then minus half height. Minus half height. And then, so it can be a random range from this. This is the first range that it can be from. And the second range it can be from is from viewports.rect.size.y times a small number, but a little bit of a bigger number, like 0.65, right? And then minus half height. So it's going to be a random range from this range. So it's going to be between this and between this, right? And now we need to kind of like know if we entered or if we scored or if we went through what like did we go through the scored area 2D. So if the bird hits the pipe, we want to say pipe.entered.connect, and then we have to create a brand new script or a brand new function, and we can just name this like bird entered, and then it should give us an error. Yeah, it's gonna give us an error for now, but it will be fixed here in a second. So we can do pipe.scored.connect is going to be on our points scored, right? And then we're going to have our pipe.setSpeed is going to be equal to pipe speed, right? So we're gonna kind of pass this number through to the other scene. So now we have errors, but to fix these errors, we just got to go and create the function, right? So function bird entered. And in this function is going to be super easy. So first we're going to go and we're going to emit the crash signal that we created at the top of this script. And then we're going to call another function, which is going to be called stop, right? And to create this function, we'll make another function, which is stop. And then we'll get our spawn timer. We'll end that so it stops running the timer. And for like, this is going to be for the pipes, right? So we got to get all the pipes that are on the screen, and we need to set this pipe speed to 0, right? So they stop moving. So to do this, we're going to get all the pipes on the screen, all the pipes that are classified as a pipe in the class name pipe, are going to set all of the speeds to 0. So for pipe in get all of the children, right? So we're going to get all the children dot filter, and we're going to have a function which is going to be child, and then this is going to return child pipes, or child is pipes, because this is the class name, right? And we have an extra. Okay, so I forgot to end that there, right? Boom. Okay, so, and then pipes, pipe as pipes. I'll kind of show you what this is doing here in a second, but speed is going to equal to 0. So when we say pipe as pipes, we're getting the variable that we have up here. We're getting the pipe. Where is it? Or no, we're getting the variable that we made right here, right? So we're getting this scene, and then we're checking to see if it has this class name. So for pipe, which is the variable, in get children, so all the children of this scene, we're going to get all the children, and then pipe as pipes. So if it has a class name of pipes, then dot speed is going to equal to 0. So we stop it, and it will stop. And that's why we set pipe dot set speed. That's how we change all the speed and everything, right? So we obviously still have one more error, which is going to be easy to fix. This is going to be our function, and this is going to be our point scored function. And you may be like wondering, how long do we have until we can play the game? Almost. We're almost there. We can technically spawn pipes right now, but we need some type of big script that is like the manager, which is going to be called our game manager. So we can go through and we can see what state of the game we're in. We can, end the game by killing the bird. We can stop the pipe spawner, and all that different stuff, right? So to do that, we're going to go to our main scene, and we are going to go to our node and create a node. We're going to move this to the top because it's probably the most important node, and that is going to be our game manager, right? So we're going to create a script. First, let me go through how the pipe spawner script works, right? So at the very top, we have a class named pipe spawner, because that just to keep everything simplified and good, nice and neat. And we need to keep this file system down here nice and neat. So I'm going to move the game manager script into the scripts folder, right? So we have a crash signal and we have a scored signal. So if the bird crashes, we're going to emit this. If we score, then we're going to emit this. We get the entire pipe scene, and we get var pipe speed. We're going to set the speed, and then we have our timer. We just access the timer. We get to the ready, and we're going to spawn timer dot timeout. So every time that timeout ends and it outputs a timeout signal, we're going to play this function, which means we're going to spawn a pipe. And we actually have nothing in the physics process, which we actually do need something. So I'm trying to think. Actually, no, we don't. Do we? No, okay. We're going to remove this. But we are going to create one more function. So that I almost messed that up, because in our game manager, we're going to need a something to be able to start the timer whenever we exit the idle game state, because we're going to be in an idle game state, a playing game state, all the different game states. So when we're in an idle game state, we do not want the pipe spawning, so we need the timer to be stopped. So if we say something like start spawning, right? We can say start spawning, and then in this function we'll just say spawn timer dot start, right? Because then we'll start the timer. And other than that, that looks good. But so we have, this is right here, we call the function. So every time the timeout, the timer times out, we're going to spawn a pipe, which is var pipe equals pipe scene. So we're basically just getting the pipe scene again. Add child pipe, we're basically duplicating the pipe. And then this is all to randomize. This is all to basically randomize how high, how low, and to randomize the entire set. So sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's lower. And then this is pipe enter.connect bird entered. This is just to connect the pipe scene to everything else, right? So that's a very basic rundown of it. But if we go to our game manager, this is going to be pretty easy, also a little bit complex, because we're going to have an enum, and enums are, I mean, they're not hard. It's kind of like a list or a table. So we'll just name something like game state, right? We'll just keep it very, very simple. And then we're gonna have to do a curly bracket, and inside the curly bracket we're gonna have our different things. Idle is going to be like when you're on the main menu. Running is going to be when the game is going, and ended means the game is ended, right? And there var game state, and then we're gonna need a bunch of onReady vars, because we're gonna have to access the pipes, we're gonna have to access the bird, we're gonna have to access the game manager, which is ourself, which is this own script. But to access all the vars, we're gonna have an onReady var pipe spawner equals, and we're going to have to access this pipe spawner, which we can do by kind of bringing in. So if we do one period, this means ourself. So we're gonna have to do that for the game manager, and it might not come up. It might not come up. It should be that, right? It should be that. And then the name, or the class name, now we need the class name. What do we call this? Pipe spawner. Okay, so it's capital P, capital S. So pipe spawner. If we get no errors, we should be fine. And we have no errors. Okay, so that works. So onReady var, and we're going to need a var for our bird. We're going to have to get our bird, which is going to be the exact same thing, because double dot means the parent. So we're getting the parent. And then we're going to check, so we get the parent, this gets the parent node, so we're getting the main node. And then the pipe spawner is obviously going to get whatever is called pipe spawner in this entire thing, based on where the game manager is located, right? So onReady var verb equals get node, and we're gonna have to get this node, because this is not like a node 2D. It's not just the script, it's an actual scene. So we'll say get node dot slash bird as, what do we call it? It should be bird, right? Just, yeah, bird. That's the class name. So as bird. And then we have another onReady var, and this onReady var is going to be for our game manager. So game manager equals, and then we'll say just one period, that means it's self. Okay, so now if we go and we create, we're gonna have to have a variable for points, just so we can keep track of the points. And then we're going to have a ready function. I don't know why we're getting an error. There should be no error there. But first, we're going to have our game state, and we're going to start by being in the idle game state. So when we start the game, we want game state dot, or game state equals game state dot idle. And then whenever our bird, we want to make sure that we have the game when it started. So, okay, so let me explain. So first, let's actually create all the other functions. So we're going to need a function game started. Game started, basically it's going to say game state. We're going to change the game state because the game has started. So the game state will change to running. And pipe spawner, we're going to get our pipe spawner scene, and we are going to run the function that is start spawning. I think we called it start spawning. So it's going to start spawning all the pipes. And then we're going to have one more function, which is going to be a function end game. And in this function, we're going to first bird dot kill, which means we are going to, is that what I think we called the function over here? Okay, we called it done. So it's not kill, it's bird dot done. And then pipe spawner dot stop. And we are also going to have one more function, which is going to be for our point scored. So when a point is scored, then we want points to plus equal 1. And you want this to say, like, you want to update the points on the UI, which we don't have any UI right now, but we are going to add that here in just a second. So for now, we'll just do print points just so we can see it in the output. But if we go back to the ready, game state equals game state dot idle, and now bird dot game started, which is the function that we just created. I did not spell that wrong. Game started. So bird dot game started dot connect, and then we're gonna say something like or we need to connect this to our game started function, right? So we'll just connect this to our game started function. And then we have our pipe spawner. So now with the pipe spawner, we need to crash dot connect. Is that, did we call it? I think we called it crashed. Yeah, okay, it's crashed. So crashed dot connect. And then if we crash, then we want to end the game, right? And then we have our pipe spawner dot scored and dot connect to the point scored function that we just created. Okay, theoretically everything should work. All this is connected. We have our in-game, game started. All these should be getting the correct scenes. If we go to the main scene, everything should theoretically work. But you know, when you create different games like this, normally it does not work. So we're in the idle state. We should be in the idle game state right now. If we click play, now we are in the running state, and pipe should be coming at us. But the pipes are not coming at us. So we're going to have to go through and kind of debug this and figure out what is going on. Okay, so we did have some errors. I went through and I debugged the entire game, and what I found was in our main scene, in our game manager script, our ready function right here is not actually a ready function. It's just a normal function with the name ready. So it's waiting to be called by doing a, you know, a ready, a call to the function, to access the function, to instance the function, to run the function, whatever you want to call it. So it's a ready function, and it's not actually a ready function in Godot. So this is like, this function acts the same as all these, so it doesn't run as soon as the game is started. To make it run as soon as the game started, no matter what we have to do, or as soon as the script is ran, we have to have the little underscore in front, because that is what the actual ready function in Godot is. So a ready function runs as soon as the game starts, and we did not have that. We basically had a normal function with the name ready. And then our points right here, var points, we can just do equal to 0. That does not really matter. I'm just going to set it to equal to 0. So every time we start the game, obviously we want to restart the points and to have 0 points again. And then if we go and play, you'll see that everything works. If we click F6 to play, we can fly, but there's still no pipes. But you can see that eventually our player does die. So that means we hit a pipe. That means the pipes are spawning. They're just not visible on the screen. So to fix that, our background right here is in front of our pipe spawner. As long as you move the background above the pipe spawner, that means those pipes will now show over the top of the background. So now if we play, we should be able to see the pipes, and boom, right? And then it works. And if you look in the output, I'm not very good at Flappy Bird, but if you look in the output, we do have a score of 1 down here. And if we play again, everything works just fine, but we have no UI. So we have no way to display the score. We have no way to respawn the game. And we can do that pretty quickly with a canvas layer on a brand new scene that we're going to name UI. But we'll go over that here in just a second. As you can see, it works, but I suck at Flappy Bird. So this is actually a little embarrassing. So 1, 2, the score does count up. Maybe we'll do better once we finish the UI. So let's get the UI done. If we go up here and we create a brand new scene, another node, and we're going to make this into a canvas layer. We can name this canvas layer UI. And in our UI, we're going to want a label, which is going to display our points. So we can name this label points. And we can size this up. So over here in the inspector, we can go to the text and we can just put a random number like 1. We have a score, or we can put 0 for our score of 0. And then we can go to layout, we can go to transform, and we can just make this a little bit bigger. So we'll change the scale to, I don't know, 4. And that looks a lot better. It looks much bigger on the screen. And then make sure we can do double digits as well. And double digits look good, just like so. But if we line this up, we line it up something like this. And that looks pretty centered on the screen, I guess. You can obviously center it by doing the pixels and going through the transform and making it perfectly centered, but we are not going to do that. So we have our label for our points, which is going to start the points, and we also need a button, which is going to be our respawn button, so we can restart the game. So we'll just name it restart button. And we're going to go to our UI, our restart button, and we can just like size this up. We can put it down here where our respawn button would probably go. Try and make it look like it's in the center a little bit. And now if we go to our UI up at the top, we can create a new script, ui.gd. And if we go to our respawn button and we go to node and we send a pressed signal from the restart button to the UI, then now we have a little signal in here so we can get ready and we can go. But if you just saw that, if you see this function underscore ready, that's a ready function, just what we were talking about in the other script that we messed up on. So called when the node enters the scene tree for the first time. So as soon as it enters, it will run this. But when it's like this, it's a different function, and it's just like it's not going to call it as soon as it starts, right? So in our canvas layer, we're going to need some stuff for the UI. We're going to want a class name for it. So we're going to do class name, and this class name will be UI because it is the UI. And then we're going to need some onReady vars. So we'll do an onReady var, and we'll name something. It's going to be for our point display. So we'll just name it points display. And to get our points display, we can just get the points from this scene right here. We can save the scene with Control S, so we can save the scene in the script. So make sure you put the script and the scene in the right areas down here in the file system so we can keep everything organized. But we're also going to need one more ready var for the restart button, and we'll do an onReady var. We'll call this, keep it simple and just name it restart button equals our restart button, right? So there's our variables. Now we're going to create a ready function. Let's make sure we put the underscore in front so it's actually a ready function. And in this ready function, we're just going to want to make the text equal 0, so the score is 0 whenever we start a brand new game. So we'll say points display dot text is going to be equal to a string version. which is going to be a %d. This is going to change a number or an integer into a string, %0, right? So what this is going to do is it's going to make our % into a 0. So it's going to change the 0 into a string so the string can show on the text. Because if we just do it like remove this and we just try to make a integer into the text, it's not going to work, right? So we're going to make another function, which is going to be our update points. And on our update points, we're going to do points are going to be an integer because the points are an integer. And in our function, we're going to want to basically change the display or the point display based on how many points we have. So we can do points.display text. So we can change the text to equal. Obviously, we want this to equal into a string version of our variable points. So it will be a string version of our variable points, which we don't have, so which we are going to get here in a minute, right? Because we have to get this through this integer, which is whatever we're going to end up passing through when we call a function in a different script. Okay, I was so confused why there was an error there, but that points in the front does not need to be there. So I was confused why there was an error, but we had an extra point. So points display, this points is going to be brought in through this function. So when we call the update points from the game manager script, then we're going to be able to pass it through to this number, right? So points is obviously not a thing yet. It's a thing in different scripts, but we'll end up passing it through to this script. And then we also need one more function, which is going to be our game over. So when the game is over, we want our respawn button to be visible. So let's say restart button dot visible is going to be equal to true because we want it to be visible. And then on restart button pressed, we want our get tree dot reload current scene. And now everything should work, right? So if we go to our main scene and we go to instance our UI into our main scene, we put it all the way at the bottom and we play, we'll see that we have points at the top and we have a respawn button. Obviously we want the points to update, which they're not going to update yet because we haven't called them to be updated. And the respawn button, obviously we do not want to be here, but if you see the respawn button does work, right? So if let's say we're going here, right? We got 2, we got 3, and then we end up dying. Let's say we die. Well, nothing's going to happen, but if we click the respawn button, the scene restarts and we are back to the beginning. Obviously, we need to hide the respawn button and stuff based on where we're at in the game. So we can we'll do that here in the game manager script, which we'll go over in just a second. But right there, that's the basic of the UI scene and the UI script complete. Now we just need to call some different functions to update the points on the screen and to hide the respawn button when it needs to be hidden and to keep it on the screen when it needs to be kept on the screen. Okay, so to do this, we're going to go to our game manager script, and in our game manager script, we're going to have to create a brand new variable so we can access our UI. So we'll do at onReady. This has to be an onReady var, just like the ones above. onReady var, and we will name our variable UI because it's going to be the UI, and is going to be equal to, and we have to get the UI just like we did up here. And as you can see, pipe spawner and UI are on the exact same level. They're all on the exact same level as game manager. So it would be 2 dots / then the name of the item, which is UI, and then we'll bring this in as whatever the class name is, which is UI. So it's a bunch of UIs, but this is the class name, this is the name of the object over here, and this is the name of the variable that we just created. So now if we go down here to points scored, to update the points on screen, it's actually pretty easy. And to do that, we're going to do UI dot, going to call our update points function, and we're going to pass through points. And that's all you have to do, right? Now the points are updated because we created the update points function in the UI script right here. So it's going to call this script, it's going to pass the points through here, and it's going to change the text display. And then on our game manager, whenever the game is over and the game has ended, we want to call our UI game over function, right? So UI dot on game over. And then, so when the game ends, we're going to go to our UI and we're going to call our on game over function. So our respawn button dot visible is going to equal true, so we're able to respawn. But if we play, you're going to see that the respawn button is still here, which is not what we want, and that's not good. So because of that, we can go to our UI, we can go to our respawn button, and we can click the little eyeball. Now it's not visible. Now if we play, the respawn button is no longer visible. And if we play, everything works. Let's see if the score updates. The score does update. There's 1, there's 2, but like we kind of died at the same time. So if you want to fix that, and if you're dying right before and it's still counting the score because you hit this, you can always just move this a little bit back and expand it, right? So now as soon as you get through here, if you hit the pole, then now you will not die. Or I mean, if you hit the pole, there's no way you hit this, right? So if we go to our main and we play it one more time, you'll see that it's going to count it a little bit delayed, but it does count. We can always make that a little bit closer as well. So we can go to our pipes. We can bring this in a little bit to right here. So if the bird hits one of the corners of this, there's just no way it's going to be able to hit this at the exact same time that it hits the pipe, right? There's just no way because it's too far back. So if we go to main and we play, if we can score a point, but let's see if the respawn button works. The respawn does work, and it does go away whenever the game has ended, or after we restart the game. If we go through it, you see, there we go. Now it's counting points, and there's just no way that we can hit the pipe and then get the point counter. See, we died at the very end of the pipe, and it did not count that point. So that is fixed. Now the respawn button is pretty ugly, so let's do some very basic changes. Obviously, we're not going to go through and add an entire custom button and everything, but we can go and make it look a little bit prettier by going down here to our visibility. We can change the modulate to like a red, I guess. Is that what you would have a respawn button at? So we'll find, I don't know, something like this, right? And then if we go up to the top, we can add some text and we can say restart. Now if we go to our main, we play, it's visible. But if we go to our UI and we hide the restart button again, and then we go to our main and then we play, you'll see that the game looks very, very good. It works very, very smooth. There's 1 point. There's not 2 points because we died, but the respawn button does look very fancy now. And that pipe spawned super high up. But as you can see, the pipes do spawn random. And we are counting scores. As you can see, I got much better at Flappy Bird over the last like 5 minutes since that last time. But there's 4. That is how you create Flappy Bird in Godot. And I want to thank you guys all so much for watching this tutorial video. I really do hope, if you're brand new to Godot, you learned a lot of important things that you can take into your next projects. And remember, if there's anything that you need help on that I did not go over in this video, then please let me know in the comments down below. I would be for sure to get back to you and help you out. And as always, thanks for watching. Stay safe and have an amazing time creating your games with the amazing Godot engine.